chop it up.
Kamala Harris, and I just asked Farron how to pronounce her name. Kamala Harris is apparently the front runner for the Democratic Party. She has some issues and she has some bright spots, some pros and cons to some people. I've seen mostly dark spots, frankly. Let's start with you, Farron, because I'm pretty sure this is in your wheelhouse. What do you think about Kamala, and are there any red lights like blinking when you think about her being the front runner for the Democrats?
That's a lot of what I see right now is red lights blinking. And, just to your point there, where you said she's the front runner right now, apparently Kamala Harris has been the front runner for the 2020 race on the Democratic side for the last year. I mean, this is how long they have been pushing her. And CNN jumped at the opportunity to say, sweet, let's give you a town hall. Let's get our highest ratings ever. This is what they want. They have been pushing it. We have seen the hashtags on Twitter, for 12 months now. But the red lights, I mean, obviously, Mnuchin on the foreclosure issue could have nailed it. Mnuchin would be a footnote in California, not the Secretary of the Treasury right now. The jailing of the parents of truant kids, I mean, that's disgusting. That's not even just bad policy. That is downright disgusting. But you do see her now, and we have seen this pivot from her for the last few months, at least in the terms of talking points and signing on to legislation. She is, on the surface, making this leftward turn. Look at this. I'm going to sign on to this bill. I'm going to join the Medicare for All. Look at me. I'm Green New Deal. I like this too. The question is any of it genuine? And unfortunately, when you look at the history, it doesn't look like it is. I mean, she looks like the kind of person, based on the history, that if she were to secure the nomination, then it's going to back off and say, well, you know what? Medicare for All is really not feasible. The Green New Deal is a little outlandish. Hey, maybe we've been too hard on Wall Street all these years. Maybe we could back off a bit, folks. So she worries me because she's only been a progressive for a few weeks now. And it's only on paper, technically, and quite literally by her signing on to this other legislation from other more progressive folks. So I am very worried about that. But unfortunately, we might be looking at another 2016 where they have already coronated her, put the crown on there. They've probably already got posters printed out, Harris 2020 at the DNC headquarters. So we'll see what happens. I'm not liking just the fact that she's been pushed on us for so long, and CNN does the town hall. No, it doesn't smell right to me. It doesn't smell right.
Man. You said a lot, and I agree with all of it. That's exactly how I feel. Looking on the outside, I guess, TJ, what do you think about the Kamala Harris? I'm gonna keep butchering that. The Kamala Harris emergence. Do you think it's good for the Democrats? Is it good for Trump challenge? What's your thoughts?
I think she fits the narrative, and she complies with the identity politics that are so popular and have gained popularity over the last several decades, actually. So does she fit the norm? I think the fact that she's female is obviously in her favor, particularly after the last election. There's a strong push for a female candidate. She has the appropriate balance from an Indian mother to a Jamaican father. She brings a different type of diversity to the table. But I share what was discussed as far as a concern from the integrity standpoint. It's very easy to shift to what the polls suggest you should be. The real test, the litmus test for a candidate, is the legitimacy of their positions, how well they maintain that under any type of circumstance. What did their past history suggest? She was very much law and order in California, as was touched upon. There were issues with police issues. There were issues with truancies, very, very harsh, $2,000 fines and imprisonment for parents whose children were truants. Well, that disproportionately impacted the poor. The police issues disproportionately impacted Blacks and Hispanics in California and so forth. So she has a lot to account for if it's allowed to surface. If it's pushed aside, she very well could be the candidate that's dictated by the DNC.
Wow. I'm feeling it all the way, TJ. You well researched on Kamala Harris. I'm surprised that people really know about her. What do you think, Ali? What this looking from your point of view, brother, is Kamala, is she going to be a problem for Trump in 2020 if she is the nominee? What are your thoughts?
Actually, I agree with 90% of everything that's been said. I actually just think as an American citizen, she is scary. Senator Harris is an authoritarian from her time in San Francisco, where she, and I don't want to say this, but being quite frank, slept her way into appointments with the mayor there when she was the DA of San Francisco, and those truancy issues. Totally an authoritarian. And then when she was the attorney general of the entire state, you saw her being willing to have prisoners who had qualified for an early release or on-time release, keeping those locked up. And, that's totally antithetical to where there is bipartisan agreement on criminal justice reform right now. So I see her as someone who lusts for power. I see her as someone who's been dubbed by the media as you check this box and that box. But, I'm half black and half Arab. I can't wait till one day we can have an American black president, not the descendant of this or that. And, we'll see. If she can make it through the Democratic primary, then she might pose a real challenge to President Trump, who I'll be supporting. But she might actually collapse because I think in states like California that are totally blue, it's more about wheeling and dealing and scheming. They aren't really as competitive with the primaries as people would think from the outside in. So I think that she could collapse like Elizabeth Warren already has.
Man, I'm feeling it, man. You didn't leave me anything, really. You guys have really covered all the bases. I mean, I'll just say, I'm kind of dumbfounded that we're even having this conversation about Kamala. I mean, just imagine a Republican being the front runner after they, took away guns. I mean, she was a cop who was an aggressive prosecutor of poor people. Poor people, when you say poor people, I'm sorry, the reality is that's black and Latinos typically, particularly in California. I don't know how many poor people poor white folks live in San Francisco, maybe a lot. I know they got a homeless problem. But the bottom line is, if you compare that to how a Republican would fare, it wouldn't be well. But see, when you have the Democratic Party where you're able to control the media, Time Warner, it's not lost that, well, they donated to her campaign and they happen to own CNN, and then she gets the town hall and she gets rolled out all nice and pretty with all the bells and whistles. And you all are correct, man. We were talking about Kamala back in 2017 about her being the front runner.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. You see my special guest. It's Tim Black from the Tim Black Show right on YouTube. Now, Tim, you're a big racist, so I just want to know, what are your feelings about Kamala Harris?
It's the weirdest thing. They say, Tim, you're not being a good black because you're looking at Kamala Harris like you look at other people. You damn right. If that's the case, if that's the situation, that's all my choices are. If I either ignore Kamala Harris's track record as a prosecutor locking up black people like it was a going out of business sale. If I'm supposed to overlook that shit, I'm supposed to overlook her not prosecuting Mnuchin or whatever his name is, who was a fraudster who illegally foreclosed on homes. Like, I'm supposed to ignore that stuff in order to be welcomed in the big tent of Democratic Party neoliberal love. Well, look, you know what? I don't need to be in. And I've done videos on that. Like, I saw this coming. It's not that I'm clairvoyant. It's because they telegraphed that this is who they wanted. So, I don't know. I feel free to jump in, anybody. I think that what we're going to have is a feeding frenzy as we get closer to 2020. Are there any other candidates that you think could challenge her and knock her off in the Democratic primary?
I will add, my preferred candidate has not yet announced anything, and it's not who a lot of people would think. I would love to see Jeff Merkley jump into this race. Jeff Merkley, when you go back and you examine his record, go look on the issues. Look at what this man has done over the course of his career. This isn't somebody who's faking. I mean, this is a guy who's been tough on Wall Street. He's been phenomenal on environmental issues. He has been a leader on so many important progressive things. He hasn't expressed interest. I'm not saying that I've heard things or seen things. I haven't. And that's unfortunate because I love what Jeff Merkley has done. And that's not saying that I'm not going to support other people. Obviously, there are some progressives out there who've hinted at it, and hopefully they're going to jump in there and do something to help pull the rest of the candidates to the left and hopefully eventually win this thing. But Kamala Harris ain't it. And we're seeing this establishment kind of come together. Neera Tanden had this huge, Twitter feud, whatever you want to call it, saying, oh, look, they're already attacking Kamala. They did it to Beto. They're doing it to Kamala. We're pointing out a record, looking at somebody's history and saying, look at a thing you did. That's not an attack. That's history.
Yeah, absolutely, it's history, and it's what we should examine. I mean, in the Republican Party, on the Republican side, Ali, do they label conservatives bad names because they question like the record of their candidates? I don't know. I'm wondering.
Everything happens and things get butchered. It depends on, do you have the media on your side? Are you the preferred Republican by Fox News as Rudy was in 2008, or Mitt was in 2012? And then they just totally distorted Speaker Gingrich's record, and Mitt blew him up with $50 million in the Florida primary. So we had never seen that, but it was in tandem with Fox News and with everyone else, and so it's a nasty process. But I really think the test is, I've said this about Oprah. I think that Oprah would could win in a landslide so long as she didn't collapse as a person, and you just don't know how a person does until they're eating hot dogs in Iowa, they're braving the cold in New Hampshire, and so Kamala, we really don't know how she's going to fare in states that aren't California, where people owe her favors for whatever reason, and where she doesn't have a police force behind her to hurt poor people and shut people up just to benefit this donor, that donor, or this union interest. So it's going to be really, really fascinating, I think, to watch what happens, because 2004, I remember that was hilarious to watch. So, I'm getting out the popcorn. I'm enjoying y'all's primary, and it's going to be hilarious.
Hilarious. Yo, hold on. We got to get him a drop the bomb on that one. That was good. TJ, man, you look, I'm going to pretend I didn't hear Ali invoke Oprah's name. I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. TJ, I don't know, man. Can anybody stop her? You might not want anybody to stop her because you're not a Democrat, but pretend you do want someone to stop her. Is there anybody that can?
Well, I think there's any number of people. I think the Democrats are going to find out what happened to the Republicans back in 2012 when Barack Obama was running unopposed as the Democratic candidate, and you had a myriad of Republicans coming in week after week after week. Every single pundit gravitated to whoever was new. They were the shiny object. They were a flash in the pan. They led the polls for a brief period of time. The real issue is, when is America going to step up and look at substance over form? Because what we're doing is we're trying to find people who fit the constructs that we envision a president being. Now, we have one now that's outside of those norms. And a lot of people are disappointed in that. A lot of people like the fact that he's outside of those norms. But Kamala Harris fits that norm. And she's exactly what, if you were doing typecasting, you would want to run for president, particularly the Democratic Party. But the reality is the party's going to decide who it wants. And that's going to be driven by money more than anything else, who can raise the most, who they think has the best chance of defeating the current president of the United States. Because what happens is, even at the state level, and a lot of people don't understand this, it's extremely expensive to run as an independent, as I did. It is also expensive for the non-favored candidates of either of the parties, because the state parties are allowed to unilaterally decide, or a state official is allowed to unilaterally decide who actually makes it on the ballot. And if you don't make it on the ballot by the good grace of the party that you're running under, you have to come up with signature petitions. And then the parties play games trying to disavow the validity of the signatures that you get. So you almost have to get at least 50% more signatures than are required by the state. And in states like California, for example, you're into the 300s of thousands of signatures required, and it escalates from there. So it's a very, very difficult minefield. The barriers have been erected by both parties quite well over the years, and they're all economic. So the reality is, it's whoever the DNC or the RNC chooses is going to be their candidate, in all likelihood will be.
You know, you bring up a good point, TJ, when you say the Democrats could learn something or go back in history and look at the Republicans in 2012. My only thing is, I think that the Republican Party is a lot more fair than the Democratic Party. I don't believe the Democratic Party will allow each candidate to rise and kind of get a little spotlight. I think they're very content with just riding with Kamala and be damned anybody else. I mean, Elizabeth Warren, she'd already announced she didn't get a town hall. Where's been the electricity around her campaign? Cory Booker, I'm pretty sure everyone knows he's joining in. I haven't heard much talk about it. I don't know if he's done it officially yet. Bernie Sanders, as soon as they talked about Bernie, it was a Yahoo article that came out, an AOL article, and they commenced to smearing him immediately. I mean, he hasn't even officially announced yet, but there has been no chatter, no positive chatter, only negative. I think the difference in the Democratic Party is that they will circle the horses quicker, and they will start putting their thumb on the scale. Hell, hey, Farron, an anvil on the scale, in my opinion, sir, when it comes to the candidate that they prefer.
I agree, and that is very unfortunate. And I almost hate to say it, but yes, I agree that the Republican primary process is a hell of a lot more fair than the Democratic one. I mean, they don't have to deal with these hundreds of super delegates who can come in and swing things. I mean, you know, it was very sad. And I talked about this back in 2016 as well. Like, they're actually doing it right. And how is it that the Democrats don't look at this and say, you know what, there's a system over here that actually works, but we want to keep, you know, oh, this person was a city councilman down in Alabama for 2 weeks. They're a super delegate. You get 2 votes technically because you can vote in your primary, then you get to go cast your other one. The whole thing is flawed. Nothing works the way it is supposed to work. And unfortunately, you know, they don't want to change. They don't want to do something better. The only thing we've gotten out of them is their resolution that they passed a few weeks ago saying, okay, we're not going to take sides this time. I mean, they actually had to vote on that and say, okay, all right, fine, we're allegedly not taking sides. That's how bad that they even acknowledge that they are. So when they're willing to come out and say, you know what, we've screwed up in the past, so we're gonna try to be as neutral as possible. You know, yeah, they're trying to make positive steps, but they're also admitting we've been really awful here.
Yeah, totally. DNC fraud lawsuit pointed that out. They said that they could go in the back room and smoke cigars and pick their nominee for be damn a democratic process. Did you like that clip? What if I told you could see all of my shows, all of them, the full shows, for only $5 a month? Interested? All you gotta do is click right here, become a Wolfpack member, and you get access to Chopping It Up with Tim Black, the Tim Black at Night Show, and Coffee with Tim Black, all of it in its entirety. Join today, $5 a month, click the link, and I see you there. Wolfpack.
Pretty good.